Welcome everyone to Bonifabcustom. Today I'm going to show you how to make a Mosaic Damascus pattern, step by step. Let's get right into it. So a mosaic pattern is basically a bunch of smaller patterns and they're all forge welded together. Now this type of pattern is probably the more difficult type to make because it consists of at least 3 separate forge welds to make one pattern. Now the first thing we got to do is we have to forge weld a billet. Now I'm going to make a billet with about 30 layers in it, so I'm going to be using 1/16 material, 2 by 4 inch, and I'm going to be using 15N20, 15 layers of that, and 1095, 15 layers of that. And I'm going to stagger them and I'm going to forge weld them. The first thing we're going to do is we'll forge weld that billet all together, and then we can machine it and get to the next step.
So I'm going to take this big billet, and first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to machine the sides to take the weld off, because it was welded like this on the sides and on the front. So we're going to take the weld off, probably take about 150 thou off per side. So right now, after we put together our 30 layers, if we look at the end of the block, we would have something that looks like this if we etched. So straight across, we would have these layers of 15N20 and 1095. So what we want to do now is we're going to put this back in the forge. We machined off the weld, so we want to make sure that we don't have weld showing because it shows up as blotches on the Damascus. So we machined off all our weld, squared up our block, and now we're going to put it back in the forge. But instead of forging down on these sections again, we're going to forge down on these corners like this to create a square block on those corners now. And what that's going to do, it's going to cause these layers to change shape, like kind of like this. Something like that. So they're going to change shape, and that's going to cause a really nice effect when we're putting it all together into our next step. So let's forge down those corners and make that block. So now I'm going to be forging it down the corners, see, instead of it being forged down this way again, I'm going to forge down the corners and make it square.
So now we have the block forged on the corners, drawn out again. We're going to cut it into 4 equally spaced sections, and then we're going to machine the blocks completely square to machine off again that scale that's on the outside, or maybe some weld that's there also. And we're going to machine one end of it to make sure it's square, and then we're going to etch it quickly to look at where that pattern is. Let's do that.
So that now they're all squared up like this. They're about 900 by 900 thou, and approximately just under 3 inches long. All we're going to do now is we're going to square up one end of it, and we're going to etch it so we can look at the pattern, and then we're going to weld it all together. So to find out where the pattern is on these blocks, because we can't see anything really, I need to find out where the pattern is on the end. So when I stack them together, it looks nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a quick acid etch on the ends just to see where that pattern is, and then I can stack them properly. It just has to be in there for a few seconds. And I'll just neutralize it. Now I can see where the pattern is. So I'll do that to all the blocks. So now I have them all done, and you can see what pattern. It's going to be like kind of like a star in the middle. So I'm going to number them so I put them in the right order, or they're facing the right way. And what I'm going to do that's a little bit different, instead of just forge welding them together like that, I'm going to make it so I have this little outline. And the way I'm going to have that is I'm going to add some pieces of 1095, which is going to go in between like that, like that, and then we're going to stack these inside. So in theory we should have that star, but we should also have this outline of this darker material in the inside. So let's get that all together, and then we're going to TIG weld everything all the way around and then weld on a bar so we can handle it in the forge. So now it's all welded up, and now we can put it into the forge and forge weld it all together and draw it up. Have the billet here, and I cut one end of it off, and I not polished it, but I brought it to about a 320 grit, and I'm going to put this in the acid and take a look at the pattern on the end. So now you can see the pattern there. Looks pretty cool, and you can see where I put that 1095 in between to add that dark color. Now there might still be some weld here, that's why it didn't etch. So now I have to machine it all, square it all up, and make sure that there's no weld showing, or else that's going to ruin the pattern.
So now it's all machined. I'm gonna put it inside the etch to see if there's any weld left. So now we can kind of see what the etch looks like on the sides. Now we're not gonna see the sides, so it's not really gonna matter. We're just more concerned that we don't see the weld. The weld is all machined off, which it looks like. So we'll take it out of here, neutralize it, and then we can cut all our segments. So now you could see the segments that I need to put. I numbered them. I put an angle of 30 degrees. And now I'm gonna cut them all, clean them up, and then I'm gonna rotate them 180 degrees or 90 degrees, and then stack them again together, weld them all the way around, and then forge weld it together. So let's go on the bandsaw, and we're gonna start sawing all these segments. On our bandsaw set up, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna feed this in and start cutting each segment one at a time. So now they're all segmented, they're all cut. This is the way I had it on the billet. So what we're doing now is each section, I deburred already, but I'm gonna clean them with acetone, and I'm not gonna take them out of sequence. And I'm gonna rotate each segment 90 degrees, like this, and then weld them together. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because what I'm interested in is the pattern on this face. And the only way to have that pattern face up is by cutting it and rotating each segment. So let's clean it all, put it in a row, and then weld the whole bar together. So right now, I'm going to start welding the sections. I'm going to take my number one and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, like that. I'm going to put a clamp on it. I'm going to take my second, number two, I'm going to rotate it and put it against that section. Number three, rotate it. And I'm going to get my clamp. Make sure the section is tight. Like that. I'm going to start welding sections.
for some forge welding. So I'm excited to see what this is actually going to look like. Let's do a test etch in sulfuric acid. Looks really nice just for the test etch right now. We can still see there is a little bit, a couple of little spots of weld here. So that will probably come out with 5 or 10 thousandths of an inch when I grind it into the shape I need. This will be a dagger, so that's why I forged also the front closer to a point here, so you can see the pattern kind of bend towards that, which looks really nice. Other than that, looks super nice. You can see that that spine of the 1095, it all connects together, and the ones crossing it, and the way each piece is forge welded together.
Thanks again, everyone, for watching Bonifabcustom as we made our Damascus mosaic pattern. At the end of the week, we're going to be giving away a lot of these patterns, little samples of them, to subscribers only. So if you haven't subscribed yet, push that button and subscribe now. Thanks again for all your support, and we'll see you later on in the week.